So Cuba's been plagued with blackouts, and it has massive and disastrous consequences. We've been doing that to them, and I want to tell you about how it's affected them so badly. But first, we got to talk about what in the world's going on. Are we going to attack Cuba? Elliot, tell us the story.
Yeah, so Cuba experienced a massive blackout on Tuesday, which makes it the third blackout since the U.S. oil embargo began stressing the country's grid. Per the Associated Press, fuel has been running out across Cuba since January, when U.S. President Donald Trump threatened tariffs on any country that sells or provides oil to the island, deepening the island's ongoing economic and financial crisis. Public transportation has largely been halted, and officials have canceled tens of thousands of surgeries. Cuba currently can only produce 40% of its oil needs, and these outages affect daily necessities like water supplies and cooking and telephone and internet services. The blackouts have a significant impact on the population, and combined with the energy embargo have led to transportation limitations, reduced work hours, and flight cancellations, in addition to serious public health consequences. Alternative fuel solutions for Cuba have not been discussed, as the U.S. eyes the island as its next military target, per CBS. Military planners have in recent weeks examined a range of options for possible action against the island, including an Army-led air assault involving thousands of U.S. soldiers to be carried out by the 101st Airborne Division, the only unit trained for such a task, according to multiple U.S. officials with knowledge of the discussions. But any overt movement on those efforts is being presented with some pause, as any operation against Cuba would confront the Pentagon with a significant problem, because much of the U.S. military's attention and some of its most valuable offensive capabilities are already committed elsewhere. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has emphasized that the U.S. prefers a diplomatic option for a transition to a new government led by technocrats and willing to make economic reforms. So 2 months ago, CIA Director John Ratcliffe traveled to Cuba to make the case for economic engagement with the U.S., but that conciliatory tone was undercut because Ratcliffe also brought along one of the operators who was involved in the U.S. mission to capture then Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro in January, making a point of introducing the paramilitary leader to the Cubans as the one who had killed their people in Venezuela. Several people familiar with the trip told CBS News. So Trump has long had it out for Cuba, even reversing within hours of his second term Biden's decision to remove Cuba's designation as a state sponsor of terror. The Trump administration expanded that approach when Rubio reinstated restrictions on business transactions with Cuba's military-controlled conglomerate, GAESA, arguing that the armed forces, not Cuba's private sector, control much of the island's hard currency economy. Weeks later, the State Department broadened visa restrictions targeting Cuba's overseas medical missions, accusing Havana of exploiting doctors and nurses through a state-run labor export system that Cuban officials insist is voluntary. The campaign escalated further earlier this year when Trump declared Cuba a quote, unusual and extraordinary threat, and extended sanctions to foreign governments and companies supplying the island with oil. Additional actions included sanctions on senior Cuban officials and penalties targeting Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel and other top figures.
Real quick, let's talk about something that holds way too many businesses back. You've got a great idea, you've got momentum, but you're stuck because you don't have the right person to execute on it. And hiring, full-time recruiting takes weeks you don't have. Here's a tip: you don't have to do it all yourself. Upwork is a one-stop platform to find, hire, and pay expert freelancers across web and software development, data and analytics, marketing, business operations, and more. Upwork helps grow your business by giving you fast access to specialized talent across more than 125 categories, so you can fill skill gaps, launch projects faster, and scale support up or down without committing to full-time headcount. You can browse profiles, review past work, and get help scoping the role so you can hire with confidence and get started quickly. With Business Plus, you can access the top 1% of talent on Upwork, and with AI-powered shortlisting, you'll get matched to the right freelancer in under 6 hours. No endless searching required. Upwork also cuts down operational hassle by handling things like contracts and payments in one place, so you can spend more time running the business. Thousands of growing businesses already trust Upwork to hire flexible, high-quality freelance talent for everything from one-off projects to ongoing support. It's free to sign up, and posting a job is easy. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com to connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com.
Despite the administration's claim that they are aiming for a diplomatic resolution, their actions suggest the exact opposite. Now, Cenk, I do follow this historian by the name of Daniel Bessner. He studies foreign policy and a lot of Cold War stuff. He has this idea that in the coming years, sooner or later, we will eventually take Cuba. China won't do anything about it. China might take Taiwan. We might not do anything about it. I don't know if that's how everything's going to play out, but it does seem like it's a possibility given what's going on here. But what are your thoughts?
So there's a couple of different thoughts that I have about it. The first is what we're doing to the Cubans is sick. And if we had any decency, we wouldn't be doing it. So first of all, when they lose power to the whole country, they lose power to the hospitals. And tens of thousands of surgeries have been delayed at a minimum. And people are having trouble eating. And we're punishing the average person in Cuba. And there aren't a lot of rich folks in Cuba. So other than the people in charge, they're all struggling to begin with, and now we're hitting them with a 2x4. So we have to have some degree of conscience and morality. And this one's not Israel. We're doing it, okay? And we're not getting dragged into doing it. We're doing it voluntarily. And it's sick, it's not right, and it's not what a shining city on a hill should do, okay?
Yep.
So then the second part of it is, well, what's gonna happen to Cuba? Okay, look, as with Iran, I'm stuck on this, right, Elliot? So I don't like the Iranian regime. It's a fundamentalist religious government. I don't like the religious fundamentalist settlers in the West Bank. I don't like the religious fundamentalist regime in Iran. Okay, they're from two different religions, but the thing that binds them together is fundamentalism. So, but attacking Iran makes that regime stronger, not weaker. So that doesn't make any sense. In the case of Cuba, it has nothing to do with religion. Obviously, it has to do with politics and economic model. Now, we're really fighting communism. Honestly, who cares about communism, right? Like, what an old thing to theoretically worry about. And like, is there any communist nations left? Maybe Cuba, maybe North Korea, but North Korea is just a dictatorship, right? And China is a mixed model with massive amounts of capitalism in there, right? So is there any threat that the communists are gonna take over? Of course not, it's absurd. We're fighting a phantom. So is this just about appeasing rich Cuban Americans in South Florida who want some of their property back? Or, so on the other hand, Elliot, and this is why it's complicated, I would want a better regime in Cuba to, get more prosperity for the Cuban people because they are suffering. So then what do we do?
Yeah, I think my understanding is Marco Rubio's been chomping at the bit to do something about Cuba for as long as he's been around, basically. And I think you're right. Like this, especially young people, they're not going to buy the idea of being scared about communism and doing this whole Red Scare thing again. I mean, if anything, the polling suggests that young people are more inclined to be pro-communism, at least pro-socialism in some way. But there is this idea, I think, called the spheres of influence that I think might be coming back into play, where it's like we're basically going to be left alone to do whatever we want with whatever countries are around us without impunity, and other places like China will be able to do the exact same thing. But you're right, I don't think it's like a good thing. It's not like I don't think there's a good outcome right now with these possibilities.
Yeah, look, the one thing that's easy is we shouldn't do the military option. People are gonna get killed, some of our guys might get killed. There's no need to kill Cubans, that's crazy, right? And China shouldn't do the military option in Taiwan. And if we don't want China to do the military option in Taiwan, we shouldn't do the military option in Cuba. Now, but that's acting rationally. That seems like way too much to ask from our government. So in this case, are Cuban American donations to Republican politicians a little bit relevant? Sure, of course they are. Donations are always relevant. Campaign contributions, bribes, whatever you want to call them. But I think probably the most relevant is that they finally got a Cuban American with that same ideology as Secretary of State. And they're thinking this is our one chance, because some other factors like Big Pharma or APAC are kind of forever, right? They're going to be around and they have an enormous amount of power and wealth. The Cuban American community has some power and wealth, not an enormous amount. They need somebody like Marco Rubio to push the ball forward to get a war. I mean, normally only the Israelis get wars, right? So I feel like Rubio's trying to push the dominoes here because this is their last chance. I know war's not the right option. I think in my ideal world, I would say this: we should lift all the sanctions and let them do whatever the hell they're going to do, right?
Yep.
Incentivize democracy, but not necessarily capitalism. Not because I think communism is going to work or I'm against capitalism. I call myself a capitalist, but because, hey, look, let them do whatever. Maybe it works, okay? And I really, really, really doubt it, right? But it's not our country, it's their country. But more likely, if you encourage any kind of democratic impulse, if we can make a trade, right? Hey, we won't invade you, but give me some real democracy. Not full blown, they would never agree to that, right? But some provisional democracy that international peacekeepers, et cetera, can monitor. Because at that point, then at least you empower the Cuban people to go, well, I want to stay on this track, or I don't want to stay on this track. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah, and then live and let live, I think, is just a decent foreign policy. Just stay out of other countries' affairs and let them do what they're going to do, I think. Yeah,
I know. But what we just discussed is what would be the rational thing. We're not going to do that. So, but at the same time, war is not baked in because the Cuban American PACs are not anywhere near as powerful as the big boys, right? So if they were powerful enough, like the oil lobby, I'd say, it's over, we're going into Cuba. But they're not that powerful. So with just Rubio, they might not be able to pull off this war. So cross your fingers on that one. And for the first time, knock on wood that I'm right? And no jinx, okay? Because usually I have disastrous predictions. So I hope
apocalyptic.
Yeah. I hope my prediction that we probably won't go into Cuba is right.
Yeah, amen.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.